Would you like to reach our film and TV review podcast audience? Do you have a product or service of interest to film and TV home consumers or followers of the entertainment industry? Have a film or show production to publicize? For affordable price plans for all budgets, get in touch and find out about our introductory advertising options. Reach our audience of film and TV viewers and visit our site contact page at filmandtvreview.com, or you can email us at business@filmandtvreview.com. Reach out today. Welcome to filmandtvreview.com. Catch the latest film, TV and streamed show reviews every week. The views and opinions expressed by the authors and those providing comments are theirs alone. They do not reflect the views, opinions or position of filmandtvreview.com or their respective parent companies or affiliates. Filmandtvreview.com makes no representations as to accuracy, completeness, correctness, suitability, or validity of any information in this program and is for entertainment purposes only. Episodes may contain adult humor and language. For full terms and conditions, see filmandtvreview.com.
Hello there, and welcome to another edition of Film and TV Review, and this is our December roundup. Got quite a few titles that are reached us towards the end of the year, so joined by my regular hosts, Mark, James, and Richard, and welcome everyone. I think we'll start with one title. We'll go straight in. A Netflix thriller, I think, an all-star cast called Leave the World Behind. And I think, Mark, you've seen this.
I have.
A bit about it. Doing quite well in the charts, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, number one on Netflix at the minute at the time of this recording. So, hi, everyone. The film I've seen, as Jason has mentioned there, is called Leave the World Behind. It's on Netflix. It's sort of a apocalyptic style thriller, kind of an all-star cast: Ethan Hawke, Julia Roberts, Mahershala Ali, by the creator of Mr. Robot. So if you've seen the TV series Mr. Robot and you enjoyed that, it's by the creator of that. So the premise, in essence, without any spoilers, the premise is sort of Julia Roberts is the mother of a family, Ethan Hawke's the father. They decide to book a weekend away, like Airbnb sort of style, to go to like a weekend retreat in a kind of in a villa, that kind of thing. As they are there, unusual events start happening. And that's what drew me in, actually, watching the trailer. So one of the first things that happens, they're near a beach. They go to the beach. An oil tanker sort of basically comes ashore, seems to crash ashore on the beach, and they decide to leave. They decide to leave the beach, or the other families and what have you. As they then return back to their house in the middle of the night, the homeowner returns with his daughter under sort of very mysterious circumstances. That leads to a sort of paranoia type situation where, Julia Roberts and Ethan Hawke, as the mother and father of the family, don't know whether these people are the actual owners of the Airbnb or whether they're imposters. The owner and his daughter are sort of having private conversations in the basement, which seem mysterious. So it gives it it's a very reminiscent of M. Night Shyamalan type films, where there's this kind of mysterious premise. It does work in its favor. So as the viewer, you're kind of intrigued to see what this will lead to. It's based on a book as well. It's quite, and that's sort of its strength and its weakness, in that the mysteriousness of the film keeps the viewer sort of drawn in, but at the same time, you like films to have a beginning, middle, and end. It does feel like there's a beginning to this film. It feels like there's a somewhat grey area, a murky middle, but the end is left quite open, and that's probably where it may divide viewers, to be honest. Some people may like that, some people may find that frustrating. It kind of leaves a lot of interpretation open to the viewer in some aspects. But yeah, that's in essence the kind of story. Mahershala Ali's character is a kind of someone quite wealthy, who's the Airbnb in essence owner, someone quite wealthy who's worked for, like, done contracts for the Defense Department, and you see that he seems to know more of what's going on than he lets on, which adds again to the mystery element of the film. Kevin Bacon's also in it as a kind of conspiracy theorist, nut job type character, but who's kind of prepared for the apocalypse when it comes along. So obviously, he's kind of the person who's got like a shelter and stacking up food and supplies and that kind of thing, and weapons. But yeah, it's got an intriguing trailer. That's what drew me into watching it. It's quite good. I personally enjoyed it. It's kind of a stab at all sorts of different things. It's a kind of a stab at cyber attacks, or it sort of gives you the idea of what would happen if cyber attacks on a mass scale kind of occurred. It takes a stab at sort of technology in some ways. There's a stab at sort of electric cars and things being potentially lethal, and yeah, things like that. So it's kind of got a lot of different messages in the film. But it's yeah, I mean, some people say it's a bit Hitchcock-like, but I would say for me, when I was watching that, I found it like a M. Night Shyamalan film. It's got that kind of feel and vibe a little bit, but with like some of the M. Night Shyamalan films, arguably you might say some of the endings are interesting, some of the twists are interesting, so others are kind of leave a bit to be desired. This one kind of, you can feel can go either way. There's kind of a bit of humor in one aspect where the daughter of the family is watching the last ever episode of Friends, and then the internet ceases to exist and she's about halfway through the episode. So she's like, the whole film is her trying to see the last ever episode of Friends and being frustrated because she won't know what happens. And eventually there's a comedy element at the end where she kind of does, that's resolved to a certain extent with a comedy element. But yeah, it's a good film. It's decent, and I would recommend it. And if I was going to give it a rating out of 5, I'd say 3.5 out of 5 stars on Netflix now in the UK at the time of the recording as we're talking now. So go see it.
It kind of reminds me, it's kind of this end of world apocalypse like Netflix did last year. I think it was like Don't Look Up. It was this kind of
I was about to say the same thing. Actually, funny. I was about to say that actually it reminded me of the same December release of Don't Look Up.
Yeah. So it's interesting. It's kind of intriguing. It's doing quite well in the charts in Netflix at the minute now. But it's kind of similar to a lot of other post-apocalyptic films. I mean, some post-apocalyptic films, there's sometimes a resolution to the crisis. Other ones there isn't. This is one where it's again left open-ended. So, is there a resolution? Isn't there? You don't really find out. It's kind of left to the viewer to interpret it how they want to. But yeah, it's enjoyable overall. So yeah, but yeah, and similar to that.
Seems to be popular. I guess it's the end of the year apocalypse instead of the new Christmas edition of movies. Okay, well, thanks for that.
Impressive, by the way, that Netflix has been able. I mean, I shouldn't say that because it happens more and more often now, but because I was reading what you were saying online, and it's true that the cast is pretty amazing, to be honest. So it's crazy that actually Netflix is bringing so many people actually together, to be honest.
Yeah, it's true, Richard. Yeah, it's got an all-star cast. Yeah.
Mahershala Ali, Julia Roberts, you're saying Kevin Bacon, and Hook. Yeah, not bad.
It is quite, they kind of got that group ensemble all-star cast that we don't get in cinemas anymore, because it seems and we'll probably talk about this in another edition, but it definitely the way of cinema this year kind of really reflected how we've moved away permanently from the star power, but some of them very talented over the last decade or two get to be utilized here. So it's quite good to see them utilized this way. Anyway, speaking of big star names, our next title, which is just in time for the holidays, is a remake of the Roald Dahl book. Another one. It's
not really a remake.
Wow, yeah, it's probably a prequel.
It's a prequel, isn't it? Yeah. It's Wonka, of course, and this is the prequel to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, but this is more the early years of Wonka, and I think it's Timothy Chalamet, Richard and James.
Chalamet.
Chalamet, yes. I always say Chalamet and it's Chalamet.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm glad we've got a French expert on. So, Richard and James, what did you think of Wonka?
Okay. So it was a nice surprise because for two reasons I wasn't expecting much from that movie. First reason is that it's a musical comedy, let's say, and I'm never a big fan of musical comedies in movie theaters. I insist. I like them on stage, but not in movie theaters. And also that, because I didn't really know if it was a prequel or it was a remake or whatever, I was thinking, okay, I've seen that already twice in movies. I've seen the Gene Wilder one, right, in the 70s, and also the one obviously of Tim Burton, 15, 20 years ago. So I was thinking, like Spider-Man, like all these movies that keep being remade. I said, what's the point? So it was a good surprise because, in a way, first of all, the musical element of it was actually quite well inserted in the movie, in the stories. I mean, it actually didn't take me out of the stories most of the time, which is always a good sign. And the second reason why I enjoyed it is, well, it's not exactly a remake again. It's definitely more of how a guy who has literally no money and has a dream managed actually to achieve his dream. So he's definitely before the legend, whatever you call it, Willy Wonka, becomes who he is. And I like the message. It's definitely very naive. It's very, very family friendly, but the idea that someone with penniless, is that a word, right?
Yeah.
Money arrives on the shores of England and with nothing, arrived in London, etc. And as it's funny, he keeps saying that he has nothing but what is in his hat, and he just say that he will become successful and he will only do one thing, which is make chocolate or whatever or sweets, etc. And that's all. It's it's kind of it's a very optimistic, uplifting movie about the power of dreaming over the sadness of the realistic world, let's say. And and that part I really enjoyed. And maybe it's the season, maybe it's because it's Christmas, and maybe it's a movie that actually is perfect for Christmas. I don't know, but yeah, that part I really enjoyed. It's not very original because there are other movies like that, yes, but still it worked with me. Now about the performances, talking about all-star cast, it has good names. I mean, Timothée Chalamet is becoming a big name in his generation. He was supposed to star in Dune 2, which is going to be released next year, this year, but it's going to be next year. There's also Olivia Colman, who is hilarious in that movie, I think. I think she was doing a very good job. There's also Hugh Grant, who apparently it was controversial, is casting. I think people see everything that is wrong in the wrong places, in my opinion, because there is nothing wrong about his performance and his role, but he's hilarious as well. And Timothée Chalamet. So to finish, obviously, he's gonna be compared with Johnny Depp and Gene Wilder. I believe that Timothée Chalamet does a decent job. He has become in the last few years kind of what DiCaprio was maybe in the 90s, in my opinion. Kind of someone who is in his 20s, good-looking guy who actually a lot of girls like, and I think, for now at least, he's been choosing his roles and his movies in a wise way, changing between difficult artistic, let's say, performance and blockbusters. Now in this movie, I think he's better than Johnny Depp, because back then Johnny Depp was doing just another Jack Sparrow movie. He was doing Jack Sparrow for the 10th time back in the day. I still believe that the best Willy Wonka is the one from the 70s, so Wilder, because he was literally almost inspiring when he was on screen. But Timothée Chalamet kind of disappeared in this role. You almost forget who he is when you watch him. And there are some scenes actually that you want him to succeed over the big baddies of the movie. So yeah, that's my opinion.
Yeah. bit of a tall order against the Gene Wilder one, so it sounds like it's almost sacrosanct. But
Yeah.
it's a good. It's kind of a prequel of sorts. But is it? The songs are good. I mean, usually, when musicals are very tough sell nowadays, but usually it's on the strengths of these songs. Strangely enough, there hasn't been that much on the trailers or advertisements. They
No.
honestly shy away purposely. But were the songs
Yes.
pretty good, or
I think they are. I don't know. James is gonna take over now, but I think the songs overall, I think they are pretty cool. To be honest, they were very nice, and honestly, I think he's singing. I think Timothée Chalamet is the one singing most of them, and he's doing a decent job. So yeah, no, it was all right for me. And I can see this movie becoming one day a stage production in Broadway or in the West End in London. To be honest.
right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and I think I mean you hit the nail on the head, Jason, that the publicity doesn't really give away that it's a musical. I've got a friend who says that I mean I didn't obviously it's a musical because it's Wonka, right? And in the second one, the second trailer they released, Hugh Grant is singing Oompa Loompa, but in that kind of way that Bill Murray's Baloo sings Bare Necessities in Jungle Book, like he's singing it diegetically, or is it non-diegetically? I can never remember, but like he's just sort of singing very casually. That's in the trailer, and in the background you can see some people sort of twirling umbrellas. But they really push to the back the fact that it's a musical. And my friend has got a theory that if people know it's a musical going in, people go, I'm not going to see that. Even though, from my age, I grew up watching things like Mary Poppins, which are musicals, aren't they? All the Disney films, all the 2D Disney films, Jungle Book, things like that are musical. But this is a companion piece, apparently, or has been conceived as a companion piece to specifically the 1971 film with Gene Wilder. So the idea is that it could be a prequel that then leads into that. It doesn't sort of have anything at the end that directly goes into it, but you could watch it before that going into it. And there are certain songs. So the Oompa Loompa song is in there. One of the other songs, which I've completely forgotten the name of, but a lot of the songs are original songs written by Neil Hannon of the Divine Comedy, who were like a late 90s sort of band. And Neil Hannon actually wrote some songs for the early Doctor Who Christmas specials. I completely forgot this until I rewatched them this week. But they had these songs placed in the first couple of Christmas specials, which were original songs by him. So it's obviously something that he does. I assume Tim Minchin wasn't available because he would have been maybe a shoo-in for this kind of project. But I thought it was really good because it's not. To be honest, when I saw the trailer, to tap into what Richard was saying about, they keep remaking things, I thought that's not for me. I've grown up. That's not for me. That's fine. That's fine for a new young audience. They'll want to go and see that. And I went and see it. And I've got to say, there's something about just watching a film executed so perfectly. And this is directed by Paul King, who did Paddington and Paddington 2. And even as an adult, you go into particularly Paddington 2 and you go, that's kind of perfect. There's nothing wrong with that film. There's nothing you could say about it. It's and it is what it is. It might not be your favorite genre of film, or you might not be a kid anymore, but it's perfectly executed. And I think there's a charm to it. So yeah, Wonka sort of comes to town. He's like an aspiring chocolatier, and he comes into sort of conflict with this corrupt trio, which is Matt Lucas and Joseph Patterson. There's a corrupt cop as well, played by Keegan Michael Key. Is that his name? And then Wonka gets kidnapped by Mrs. Scrubbit, played by Olivia Colman. Obviously, Olivia Colman, I'm sort of watching her and Joseph Patterson thinking, oh, this is a little mini Peep Show reunion here. Yeah. And then later on, you've got Hugh Grant and Rowan Atkinson in scenes together. And you go, oh, that's like a mini Four Weddings sort of reunion at the end. But I think Carla Lane's really good as Noodle as well. And it's sort of, there's loads of British comedians as well. Phil Wang turns up, Simon Farnaby from Horrible Histories, Tom Davies as well, who did the original Murder in Successville, which I think they did a US remake of. But it's a film, it really feels like it's got like a sort of magic touch to it. Like there is something like an old school magical feel to this that just really works, because none of it is really based in reality. I mean, Wonka sells hover chocks that make you eat them and then you start flying. there's no trying to explain the law of that or anything, how that works in physics. It's just sheer fun. But yeah, I just thought it was really, really good. The time flew by. It's probably, is it about 2 hours? It didn't feel like that at all. It just sort of flew by the time. And Hugh Grant is very funny when he turns up, probably about halfway through. I mean, to touch on what Richard said, I mean, I sort of always feel strange commenting on this stuff in a way, but I do think with this that clearly nobody else could have played that role because the Oompa Loompa is so small. It's definitely a fantastical CGI effect, and there's been a lot of CG work put on him. And that actually, this film, it's got a really, like in terms of diversity, it's really, really good. I think it doesn't feel like you think this sort of film probably cast about 10 years ago would have been predominantly white actors, and there's a real sort of good mix, I think, in there. And that isn't really the first thing you think about. Actually, it's only when I've seen things about the thing with Hugh Grant, which I wasn't aware of prior to watching the film, and I've seen comments on that afterwards. And it's like, but I can't really imagine anybody else playing that role and making it as funny. And the way that it's done, I think, is perfectly fine. So, but yeah, other opinions are available, obviously. But that was my feeling. I just thought it was a really sort of like joyous, fun film, really.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's obviously seems like good timing, especially around this time of year.
Perfect Christmas film, yeah.
But whether that's going to be reflected in the box office, despite very kind of good reviews, surprisingly, it's. I think it might find its way. A general malaise, maybe, with films this year.
The good news is that unless I'm mistaken, I don't think that movie cost 200 million. I think it costs less than that, which is why I believe he's gonna make money. He's gonna work, to be honest with you.
And the other thing with this as well is I thought about, it's nice to have Christmas films to watch over Christmas. I think this might pick up a lot of, once people have got Christmas out the way and the kids are screaming in the house and parents want to take them out, they go, let's go and see that. And if you think last year, Avatar 2 did, sorry for mentioning the A word, Richard, but there you go. It did really good box office to start with, but it carried on, and it really carried on for a lot longer than certainly I anticipated. Anyway, I thought it's going to peak and then it's going to drop off very quickly. And actually, towards the end of the Christmas holidays, and then people haven't got, it's cold outside and people want to go to the cinema, it might actually continue to do box office. And also, we're going into the sort of the period now where the writer's strike is going to hit some of the releases if there aren't other big releases to take this one's place. And I think just maybe the word of mouth on it might get round.
I don't think there is much competition. I mean, we
talked
about that with Jason. There's a Aquaman 2 release this week, but I think nobody cares. Let's face it. So I don't think there's much competition for the next 10 days.
I think as well, when I was looking through sort of the year, sort of end of 2023 by genre, actually there's been a good mix. There's certain genres where there hasn't been lots of different film. And actually, in terms of musicals, you go, well, when was the last big musical? The Greatest Showman, maybe? Do you know what I mean? And there is an audience for that. It might not be my cup of tea, but it's there is a big audience for it to see it in film form. So yeah, but maybe they shot themselves in the foot with the trailers, because really tricking people into like pretending that something isn't what it is, unless you're doing that deliberately as a sort of misdirection to big up a plot point in the film or something like that, like with Gone Girl or something like that. I don't know if that's a big hit, because there's probably musical fans who just saw that and went, oh, it's another remake. It's just like a sort of fantasy film without realizing exactly what it was. So, but yeah, I think it's really good. Whether the box office reflects that, we shall see.
Yes, right. Well, thank you too. Yeah, we'll see if that has it, but we'll see. I mean, it's like I said, there's not much going on, but we've got quite a few seasons for this December, January, and maybe February if nothing else comes out. Anyway, so word of mouth. That's a funny term that I think has relevance to our next film, which is, of course, Godzilla. With Godzilla Minus One. I think this is obviously from another release from Toho Studios. Of course, the original studio behind the 1954 Godzilla. I'm sure I mispronounced that, but it's basically Godzilla in the original movie of
Gojira.
Indeed, right? Yeah, it's now this is actually a remake If when surprisingly in the age when we've had so many monster movies as of late and TV series, did we need another one? Well, it's from the makers. If anyone remembers 2016 Shin Godzilla, which probably until this point was what I would say probably the best Godzilla movie so far. Of course, that's a modern setting. But here we in Godzilla minus one, this is a post World War II setting of the aftermath of war. And the word of mouth, I'm sure anyone who's been online for or anywhere or on social media, it's been the word of mouth from this has been phenomenal. Now, I went to see this and I was wondering, do we need another Godzilla movie? Surprisingly, the word of mouth is actually spot on. It is probably, in my opinion, definitely one of the best Godzilla movies. Well, to describe it as a Godzilla or monster movie, it doesn't do it justice. This is basically a study in World War II trauma, and it is probably where you're looking at from the perspective of Japan post World War II, and it's basically how they are dealing with that after the loss of the war, and like maybe the first movie, Godzilla himself seems to attack Tokyo and other parts of Japan. Seems to represent all the fears and almost guilt of a post World War II world. It is. Why is it so good? Funnily enough, I don't think it's just because of the effects. It is because you've got such great character work going on here, and it's a film that it's one of the best, I would say, in a very, I know, very mixed year. It's been one of the best ones that I've seen. Definitely in my top three. It's strange, but James, what did you think? Because you've seen this as well.
Yeah, I didn't like it. No, I'm joking. I thought it was absolutely astounding. I had no expectation really going into it. I mean, obviously in 1998, I think it was, we had the Godzilla US movie from the makers of Independence Day. Was it Roland Emmerich?
Yeah.
Which apparently the Japanese called Zilla now because they say they took the god out of Godzilla. I really like the 2014 version actually with
Gareth Edwards.
Gareth Edwards. I thought was really good. The follow-up Skull Island, Kong Skull Island, I thought worked really well. And then Godzilla King of the Monsters is one of the worst, is in my top 10 worst films of all time. And that doesn't work, I think, because just everything's blue and it's very dreary. And it's really difficult is it kaiju is what they call giant monster movies. It's really difficult to get that blend of human drama and giant monsters, because if you just have the human drama, it's dull. If you just have the giant monsters, it's kind of just a mess, and why should you care? And it's really difficult to get that balance. And in here, I was really struck by how quiet the human moments are and how they weren't afraid to do that, and then how bombastic and just awesome the spectacle of Godzilla is just unbelievable in the cinema, even though you know what it's going to look like. And how those things gel, because if I said that to me, I would think, well, I don't think those things would work together, and they completely do. And after each attack, you really feel like you see the human cost of what's happened. I think one of the criticisms of a lot of films where there's big CGI battles and stuff is sometimes you don't feel the cost of what's actually happened, and you really do after each of these. But I mean, I thought the creator was, even though people have forgotten that movie now, absolutely deserved the best effects Oscar, because I think that film did it so amazingly. But I watched this and I was like, this really deserves the best effects Oscar as well, because it's not just, and it's made for a budget of less than 15 million, I think, which is it's easily got more than that back. But it just looks fantastic all the time. It doesn't look like you're watching CGI. It doesn't look like it's a man in a costume, it's just really, again, really well executed. I think the actors, the human actors in it, so it starts with a guy who's kind of back from war and then kind of follows him, and he becomes sort of a ostensibly like an adoptive dad to a child with his girlfriend or his wife, and then Godzilla's attacking and things. And apparently the -1 is because it's something to do with at the point after the war. That's where Japan saw themselves. Is this right? So I think that they saw themselves at 0 at the start of the war and at -1 after the war, and that's kind of thing. But again, this is sort of a remake, like you said, of the 54 version. And the question that we're always asking, do we need another remake? Well, if it's done well, and why not make something that's 70 years old and look very, very different now to how it looked? It was groundbreaking back then, but they've done a different thing with it now.
I think
Um,
it's basically
but
it's kind of a you said kind of used for a Godzilla film. It's basically used for the purpose it was supposed to do, which is basically pure metaphor. This is
yeah,
basically a metaphor for, as you say, post World War II trauma. It's at Japan at the lowest point. Could you get any lower? Yes, you can get any lower. Yes, you can. I think the original was obviously the fear of atomic power, and maybe, of course, it's the fallout from the two nuclear testing sites that happen on Japan on those two major cities. So it is all those fears, and that's what Godzilla and maybe God and that force of nature which a kaiju should represent, and that's what probably was leaned to in the original, and what it mirrors here. Absolutely. Also in Shin Godzilla, that was actually more almost, there was those post-COVID fears or pre-COVID fears. Almost you can look at it as you will, but it's kind of like a more of a kind of like a pandemic. Is the Shin Godzilla, is the 2016 one, where you have this evolving biological force of nature which causes pandemonium and breaking into a city. This one definitely, because it's World War II setting. It is looking, and probably it hits a nerve because we are quite in a quite tumultuous time with war, and it kind of would resonate quite well. And I think there's probably have an appetite for this film, but the word of
it
mouth.
would actually make quite a good double bill with Oppenheimer. I mean, that's going to be a long
Yes,
double bill. But
exactly what I was
it's
thinking.
almost it sounds sort of flippant to say that, but obviously Oppenheimer is like one of the biggest films of the year. But it's got that sort of serious tone to it. And when just saying that, I think, oh, I hope people wouldn't hear that and think, oh, well, it's not going to be fun. Like it's a fun monster movie, but it isn't afraid to take its characters seriously and things that they're going through seriously. And I think it's better for that.
I think
So
it's actually looking at consequences, and it is looking at the victim's point of view. A lot of this, most of it is a large part of the film is focused on the devastation and what happens, to survivors. And like you said, I was exactly thinking the same thing. I was thinking, oh, it's going to sound so flippant, but this is just a great partner piece to Oppenheimer. It's strange as it is, but when you see it, you understand fully why I say this and I don't say it lightly. It is definitely a companion piece to Oppenheimer. In some ways, it shows devastation more than I didn't do, which which it wasn't formatted.
because Oppenheimer isn't from that, deliberately
No,
not from that
absolutely.
perspective. So this actually does work in a way. There's a thematic overlap, but it's not like you'd be watching the same film twice, in terms of the coverage of what it's talking about.
But yes, I would say a resounding. Do believe the hype on this one and the word of mouth. And for a film that did cost about estimated 15 million, I think the director said, "I wish I had 15 million actually to spend it." But
How
it's
much? How much is how much would it cost?
15
Under
million.
15 million. This
50.
No,
One
1.5.
1.5.
And do you know what? I think that focuses people. I did hear on a podcast this year, an effects artist had written a letter in saying problem with some of the Hollywood films recently is that at the last minute the studios change things around, so they'll change the ending, which is obviously the most effects heavy part, and they've got very short time to turn it around, and so it doesn't end up looking great because the turnaround time's so short. But I think when you've got a smaller budget, you're looking after every single effect shot. They've got a count. That you've got to go with that. And actually, that sort of ends up being better. But there's some TV work that I don't want to mention Doctor Who again, but I actually, there's been sections in that where I've thought this year those effects are sort of looking better than some of the Hollywood things, because I think they go, we've only got these many shots, so they're kind of signed off almost like far in advance, and they just go that. And I've just read actually here, it does say it's a finalist for best visual effects at the Oscars, which I think it really does deserve to take away.
I wouldn't even say watch this film because of the effects. You don't need to.
No.
It's actually as
You don't
powerful.
think about them. I think that's the thing. I think you only think about effects when they're bad. So when you see a bad effect, you just go, "Oh, that doesn't look right," but you don't feel that in this film. It's so well done, but and that doesn't break your that doesn't sort of break your suspension of disbelief as well. So if you're watching a film and suddenly something doesn't look right, you go, "Oh." I'm watching a film, whereas I never really felt that in this film. I've got to say as well, I was quite tired when I went to see this film. Like I'd sort of had 2 late nights on the trot, and I knew I probably shouldn't have gone to the cinema, but I still went. And I was fighting feeling asleep, and I still really enjoyed this.
It
So
is
I think I'm going to go and
quite
see it again.
it is an emotional film. It really is. I was actually very tired myself when I went to see it, but I said I have to, because it's had quite a bit of a short release run. Maybe they should extend it, but I know in the States it's had quite a wide release for a subtitles film. This is obviously in Japanese, but subtitles. But it's had huge, as in a very good reception there, and so it deserves all the success it gets. So if you get a chance to catch it, do catch it. It's definitely one of the films of the year.
I'm gonna
Easy.
cross the fingers it's gonna be on streaming service one day in France.
Well, hopefully it will be, but hopefully with the word of mouth it will extend its run, and maybe with not so much competition, it deserves. Maybe it will have a longer run, like give films a chance to breathe, because it's definitely word of mouth, which I think are winning, getting films through the finishing line now with box office, and certainly it was this year, both with Oppenheimer and Barbie. I think it was a bit of a phenomenon, but between that, it's been very few and far between. It's only the word of mouth which tends to, and maybe as it should be now, maybe it's word of mouth. Anyway, so that was Godzilla -1. That's two. So next, we cross the pond. Richards, there are two films that you wanted to talk about. What should we start off with? Well, there's a blockbuster you want to talk about,
But yeah, so
or another one.
This is gonna be the 5 minutes of French cinema of this podcast.
Yeah.
Of recent French cinema. So yeah. So once a week I go to the movies. After the week ends, it's my tradition on Friday night. So 3 weeks ago, I went to to see movies. There was not much released back then, and I came across a very good French movie. I didn't know it was good. Called so it's called Soudain Seul in French. It's been released internationally as Suddenly, one word. Extremely good surprise. It's just I wanted to see it because there was like advertisement in the French metropolitan, in the subway, everywhere. Pretty simple plot, so it's gonna be quick to explain the premises. Just a couple, husband and wife, going on a world trip on the boat. They are the south point of South America when the movie starts. They're taking pictures of birds or whatever. And the husband wants to stop at a nearby island, which is between literally Argentina and Atlantica. And they stop by there. They take a smaller boat to get to the island. Unfortunately, there is a storm coming, but it was unanticipated. And they can't go back to the boat, to their main boat. They have to spend the night on the island. They do, and in the morning, their boat has disappeared with all their belongings on the boat. So they are now stranded on an island close to Antarctica, so it's obviously very cold, and they have no belongings, nothing. So it feels a bit like a Castaway with Tom Hanks, but with two people, husband and wife. They have nothing to survive, and they just hope that one day people will find them. And when I say that, it might sound like an adventure movie about survival, whatever, but it's more of a psychological drama between two people who actually hate each other. And it's the performance of the two actors and actress is extremely well, especially by Mélanie Thierry, who plays the wife. So I'm trying to say, is she known outside of the borders of France? Well, I think that she only starred in one movie, English-speaking movie called Babylon AD by Mathieu Kassovitz in 2005, starring Vin Diesel. Great movie. That was a box office failure, and that's all. But she's amazing, that movie. I mean, she's facing Gilles Lelouch, who is very famous in France only, but he's just doing his job. But she's amazing. I mean, honestly, what she does in this movie is extraordinary, to be honest. And yeah, I won't say more of what's happening, etc. But you can't stop watching it because it's like one obstacle after the other every 5 minutes. And you wonder actually if they're gonna find a solution, or also if they're just gonna give up, and like any human being would do. Because, for example, I always surprised when I watched The Martian with Matt Damon. I never actually felt that actually he was stranded on a planet 8 million years from here, 8 million miles from here. Why? Because you never see a scene where actually he has a human emotion. What I mean is that someone who is in this situation should be actually wanted to kill himself almost. And you don't see that. And in that movie, you see these moments. That's why I really enjoy that. You see actually a very realistic reaction to such a terrible predicament. So yeah, I recommend that movie so much. And for the anecdote, for a little story, that movie actually in the first place wasn't supposed to be a French movie. It was supposed to be an American movie starring Jake Gyllenhaal and Vanessa Kirby, produced by Jake Gyllenhaal himself. But apparently he was terrible to work with the producers, and the producers gave up literally because of him, and they sold the rights to a French company, and that's how it happened. So that's the good movie I saw 3 weeks ago, and then and then something happened last week. So last week I saw a French blockbuster, maybe the only French blockbuster known internationally this year. So it's a sequel to The Three Musketeers D'Artagnan, released in April. And this one is called The Three Musketeers Milady, or My Lady. I don't know how you call it in English.
Yes.
So I will not insult you guys by telling you what The Three Musketeers is. I mean, it's a very famous book, obviously, by Alexandre Dumas. And the first movie is actually a very good adaptation to this book, almost a literal adaptation from this book, since it's followed the story of the main character, D'Artagnan, who is a guy who comes from the middle of nowhere, south of France, goes to Paris to become a musketeer. He meets the Three Musketeers, and he wants to become part of this elite squad that protects the King of France in the 17th century. And at the same time, on the 17th century, which is true story, but bad parts, is that actually in the 17th century in France, you have these religious conflicts between the Catholics, who are in power, and you have the Protestants, who actually are literally a minority who tries to survive, let's say. And they so much so that actually that we create almost their own nation within France, in La Rochelle, in west of France. And they are these Protestants are a threat to the French kingdom because their greatest ally are the British people, the Great Britain, who actually they see actually that thanks to their Protestant allies in the French kingdom, there is a way for the English kingdom to destroy for once and for all the French kingdom, to sum up. So all of this is very well explained in the first movie. Very good movie. So 2 storylines in the first movie. The one about D'Artagnan, and he wants to become a musketeer. He falls in love with a girl. Second storyline, the political conflict between, as I said, the Protestants and the Catholics, and the fact that the Queen of France is about the book. The Queen of France is sleeping with the Duke of Buckingham, so he's betraying her own husband, the King of France, and the Musketeers have to help the king or whatever. So that's the first movie. Now the second movie. The second movie, I can't sum it up. So that's going to be a very short review because it absolutely makes no sense. I don't understand where to start. I don't know how it ends. I really don't know how it ends. I really don't know how to explain this movie because it has been written by apparently someone who first hasn't read the book and also someone who doesn't know how to write. I'm not talking about a screenplay, just someone doesn't know how to write, period. And I was joking that if someone asked me who is the main character of that movie, I would not be able to answer that question. Yes, I can't answer that question. The movie is called Milady, and Eva Green, who is playing Milady, amazing actress. She is barely in this movie, maybe for 30 minutes, and I honestly don't learn anything more in this movie than I learned in the first movie. So I don't know why it's called Milady. There's like 4 or 5 big names. It's a huge cast in France, maybe not very known internationally, but big names. Eva Green, Vincent Cassel, who internationally was like he was in Ocean 12, if it helps. But he's a very big name in France. He was also in La Haine, which is a very good French movie as well. Romain Duris, who is a very good French actor, very famous as well in France. Well, anyway, big names, but all of them have different stories. And I was saying in the first movie, at least it was easy to follow. You have just 2 stories, easy. Here you have 5 different stories, and none of them have to do with the main problem about France and the Protestants. All of them are things that you couldn't care less. It's just bad guy loves this woman. He wants to find the bad guy. Romain Duris' character, he has his sister who is pregnant, and her boyfriend doesn't want to marry her, and say, okay, but who cares? And then you have Eva Green, who appears sometimes, and still now I don't know if Milady is working for the King of France, working for the Duke of Buckingham, working for herself. I have no idea because it's not explained. And yeah, it is so convoluted. It is so badly written. But yeah, as I said, you don't know who the main character is. You don't know why they do things they do. It goes from one place to another for no reason whatsoever. It's terrible. And then also biggest plot holes that actually people are joking around online. They're making fun of the movie because there's so many plot holes that you say, okay, but that couldn't happen because that person is dead. So how can it be now? It's crazy bad. It's crazy bad. I've never felt so embarrassed by a movie for a very, very long time. And yeah.
It's I mean it's from the other side of the pond. I mean it does. You've got a very big international cast. You've Vincent Cassel, as you say, and Eva Green, who's got and they're international stars and fantastic actors, and you've got a great cast and a great budget. I can imagine this is not the style that French usually do. They tend to do very much the homegrown cinema.
Yeah.
Kind of shy away from obvious big blockbuster. Maybe they'll do Asterix and Obelix, and maybe they'll do those French properties. But it does seem this is your version of the Avengers, and it's almost like embarrassing. Like, oh, they're dipping their toe there. I thought it's a bit beneath them, but they actually going for the big blockbuster, and this all lined up. Looks like okay, you're going to be doing this, so give it your best shot. But this already had a good plot from the Three Musketeers. Even the sequel, The Four Musketeers, these are all been written. It's kind of a no-brainer to do a sequel. So I'm really surprised.
It's a shame because, as you said, I mean, France is not known, as you said, to try to play in the heavyweight category, let's say. Usually French cinema is known for independent movies, family comedies, or dramas that are successful at some award seasons. Good for them. But a blockbuster with so much money spent, big cast, and trying to do something visually stunning, and it is sometimes stunning. You have great shots of great French landscape. You have great fight scenes with a camera on the shoulder of the director. They try. You can. That's the worst part. Actually, you can see that they tried. They tried to be American. they tried to do their own Hollywood movie, but they failed miserably. Even the blockbuster part, which is the climatic scenes with big fights, etc. Honestly, I would give €10 to anyone who see this movie. Try to explain to me what's happening when there is a fight, because the camera is shaking so many times. You have no idea who is fighting who. You have no idea who is winning the fight. Yeah, it's a huge. It's
the thing, though. I think I mean, I haven't seen this film, but when people just go, we're going to try and do that. We're going to try and do a blockbuster like that. I think they're usually focusing on the wrong thing. Like having spoken about Godzilla a moment ago, where they've got a story and they've just done that, and it works as a blockbuster because the story was right. And they've done it. I think when they go, right, let's try and do something like something else, that never really works because it's like the intention in the first place is, but it all starts with the story, doesn't it? It all starts with the script. And if that isn't right, and also like the shaky cam thing, that all gets lumped in as one. Paul Greengrass does that brilliantly, and he knows how to do it, that it makes it look like a camera crew has caught that in a documentary style. He does that really, really well. A lot of other people don't know how to do it, and they just shake the camera about. Expendables 4 this year, which was so bad. you can't see what's going on. It's just someone shaking the camera, and you go, but that's not that. Just is bad camera work. It's not giving me that vibe of Paul Greengrass. Like, oh, they've just caught something that's happened in real time. So yeah, I mean, this isn't going on my watch list on your own, Dave.
No, don't waste your money. Even if you have an unlimited card for something, but don't waste your time on this. I mean, it's not worth it. Maybe get drunk and
Is the
watch
previous one good?
service.
It
Is
is
the one before good? Because it's a sequel,
Yeah.
isn't
The
it?
one in April was decent because at least the story was, you could follow it. As you said, everything should be about the story before anything else. And the story was all right. You was just it's like this simple hero arc. You have a guy who is like a nobody in the first scene. He meets other people. He's against his will. Is mixed up with very big things happening in France, and he has to sort things out. It's a very good movie, the first one. Not a masterpiece, but it's a good movie. You feel you spend a good time watching this movie, and it's so weird that the second time they just dropped the ball so much. And the worst part is that actually there is, at the end, I didn't know, I thought it was 2 movies. There is an opening for a third movie. Yeah, woohoo!
yeah. It has to, because actually this has all been written out already. These are almost like 3 parts originally in the original novels, so it's a no-brainer with the script. So what I would actually, I mean, there's been so many remakes over the years, and honestly, the story's all been done for them, so it's very hard to drop the ball on this. But if you don't want to catch that, then I would say I would catch up on the Richard Lester ones from 1974, 79 or something. It's called, I think it's the Three Musketeers and the Four Musketeers, and then D'Artagnan. It's basically the 3-part. There is a third part to this, so it's coming your way whether you like it or not, Richard. But there are some other really great versions of this done in the past, so just catch them up.
I will try. And I'm gonna mention it. And actually, saying that the Three Musketeers, was a disappointment. I think I mentioned that a couple of years ago. There is a great Alexandre Dumas adaptation that exists, that I recommend, called the Count of Monte Cristo, that has inspired many books, movies, TV shows of recent years in UK and in US. It's an amazing story, and the miniseries that he was part of, Gerard Depardieu, of 1999, I think. It's a 4-parter, 2 hours each, and it's a masterpiece. It's really well done. It's magnificent. It's a really good job from him, from the director. And the story, is you will feel like when you watch it, if you never heard of Count of Monte Cristo, you will feel like, oh, I've seen that before. It's just because actually it has been, as I said, it has been reused by so many other things like V for Vendetta or Sweeney Todd, etc.
These are all kind of great classics. So do catch them up. So just look in the back catalogue and you'll find. Anyway, with that one, thank you, James, Mark, and Richard. That was a bit of a December roundup. Catch us next time, and we'll probably do our end of year review. So until then, see you next time.
We hope you enjoyed this film and TV review.com episode. Catch the latest film and TV reviews, together with regular episode content from the world of film and TV every week. See you soon. Would you like to reach our film and TV review podcast audience? Do you have a product or service of interest to film and TV home consumers or followers of the entertainment industry? Have a film or show production to publicize? For affordable price plans for all budgets, get in touch and find out about our introductory advertising options. Reach our audience of film and TV viewers and visit our site contact page at filmandtvreview.com, or you can email us at business@filmandtvreview.com. Reach out today.